Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in China in the past 24 hours. China is turning the end of the US-Iran war into a diplomatic and strategic branding opportunity. Washington and Tehran signed a memorandum of understanding on Wednesday to begin ending nearly 4 months of war. And now the two sides are working through reopening the Strait of Hormuz and restoring Persian Gulf oil exports. Beijing condemned the war from the start. It denounced the killing of Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and other senior officials in the opening U.S.-Israeli strikes. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi stayed active with Iranian diplomats, and Beijing backed Pakistan's mediation efforts. Then Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi publicly thanked China for its constructive role. That is exactly the kind of public thank you note Beijing loves to laminate and wave around the global south. The energy side is where this gets very real. China cut daily oil imports by roughly 1/3 during the war, but it did not panic. Its state-owned crude stockpiles stayed nearly full. Beijing appears not to have tapped strategic reserves. Refinery tanks are brimming with gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other refined products. Chinese companies kept refineries running by drawing on corporate inventories, while domestic demand weakened because higher prices made households and businesses more cautious. Gasoline-powered car sales fell sharply in April and May. China also halted most refined product exports this spring to protect domestic supply, which worsened shortages elsewhere in Asia, especially in countries without big refining capacity. That means reopening Hormuz may not produce a huge Chinese buying spree. A bunch of tankers stuck in the Gulf may eventually reach Chinese ports, so there could be a short-term surge. But structurally, China is expected to stay price-sensitive. The US-Iran deal only lasts 60 days in its main provisions, and the region is still one bad miscalculation away from another market freakout. There's also a twist for Iran. If sanctions on Iranian oil exports are removed, Chinese refiners could lose the $3 to $10 per barrel discounts they enjoyed while buying sanctioned crude. Before the strait closure, China was buying more than 90% of Iran's oil exports, more than 1.5 million barrels per day. That is not a side hustle. That is the whole food court. Markets are noticing the broader regional setup. Standard Chartered upgraded Asia ex-Japan equities to overweight, favoring Taiwan and China in particular. Their logic is pretty straightforward. Strong earnings prospects, AI-driven investment, chip makers, and an expectation that shipping through Hormuz resumes within weeks. The bank also likes India for domestically driven growth, but China and Taiwan sit closer to the AI and semiconductor engine room. Standard Chartered projects the S&P 500 could reach 7,950 and gold could hit $5,100 an ounce by mid-2027. So yes, the geopolitical dashboard is blinking red in a few places, but investors are still sniffing around AI growth like it is a Taylor Swift ticket queue. Then Beijing reached for one of its favorite tools, supply chain leverage, dressed up in national security language. China added 10 U.S. entities to its export control list, including MP Materials and USA Rare Earth. That matters because MP Materials runs Mountain Pass in California, the only active rare earth mining and processing facility in the U.S. USA Rare Earth is trying to build a domestic magnet supply chain across Colorado, Texas, and Oklahoma. China also targeted firms tied to drones, robotics, aerospace, maritime systems, and defense applications, including Aviox, Red Cat, Teal Drones, IMSAR, Jaya Robotics, BAE Systems Space and Mission Systems, Oshkosh Defense, and L3 Harris Maritime. This was retaliation for the Pentagon expanding its 1260H list of Chinese military-linked companies, which now includes Alibaba, Baidu, BYD, NIO, and others. Beijing also barred Chinese government procurement from 46 U.S. companies, including Lockheed Martin, Raytheon Missile and Defense, and Boeing Defense, Space and Security. But here is the tell. China carved out U.S.-funded enterprises operating inside China. That carve-out says Beijing wants leverage and symbolism without wrecking its own factories. Classic great power judo. Loud slap, carefully padded glove. The indium story is quieter, but maybe more important for the AI economy. China produces nearly 70% of the world's indium. It is used in displays and solder, but the strategic piece is indium phosphide, which supports high-speed optical chips for AI data centers. Beijing already placed indium phosphide on an export control list in February 2025. Now buyers are reporting more customs scrutiny on indium metal itself, including end-user questions and slower approvals. No shipments have been clearly blocked yet, but buyers worry this is the pre-game show before formal controls. The U.S. Defense Logistics Agency has already looked to stockpile up to 403 tons over 3 years, which tells you Washington sees the vulnerability. Now to AI, where China is having another one of those "hey everyone, look over here" moments. Zhipu, also known as ZAI, released GLM 5.2 on June 13th. It is being described as the most capable Chinese trained model to date. The weights are public, the cost is advertised at less than 1/10 of Anthropic's Fable 5, and Artificial Analysis ranked it as the most intelligent open-source model on the market. Overall, it ranked 4th, behind OpenAI's ChatGPT 5.5, but ahead of Google's Gemini. Anthropic still appears to have the performance edge, with Fable 5 assessed at about 17% stronger on average benchmark tasks. Private tests also suggest the U.S. lead is wider than public tests imply, but the gap is not widening the way some expected. GLM 5.2 lagged by months on some private tests, including WeirdML and SimpleBench, but it beat ChatGPT 5.5 on a new office worker benchmark involving messy files and conflicting information. That is a big deal because Chinese models have often been better at clean math and coding tasks than open-ended judgment. The cost story is also complicated. DeepSeek may charge dramatically less per token than Anthropic, but one study found a DeepSeek model used 23 times more tokens than an OpenAI rival to get to a similar result. Cheap per token does not always mean cheap per task. Still, when the Trump administration barred non-Americans from using Fable 5 and Anthropic shut off access for everyone, Zhipu's radical openness message suddenly sounded less like marketing and more like a geopolitical pitch. Taiwan is meanwhile preparing for the nightmare scenario, China turning a routine exercise into an attack. Taipei began a 5-day immediate combat readiness exercise on June 22nd. The focus is moving from peacetime into wartime posture, with actual troops, actual terrain, real equipment, and real-time execution. Taiwan is practicing joint command, logistics, battlefield preparation, and rapid deployment. Around the same period, Taiwan reported continued PLA activity near the island, including aircraft crossing the median line and Chinese ships operating nearby. The exact counts matter less than the rhythm. Beijing is normalizing pressure, so the abnormal becomes harder to spot. China's military messaging also stayed busy. State media showed a DF-17 hypersonic missile launch for the first time and highlighted rocket force training under electromagnetic interference and precision attack threats. The Liaoning Carrier Group returned after more than 40 days of drills in the South China Sea and Western Pacific. Separately, reported satellite imagery suggests rapid progress at Dalian on what may become China's first nuclear-powered Type 004 carrier. The message is not subtle. Beijing wants the region to see a future Chinese military that can strike farther, stay out longer, and complicate U.S. planning. Finally, China's Ministry of State Security is turning counterintelligence into public theater. The MSS described a defense industry employee surnamed Zhang who was allegedly targeted overseas through a paid consulting arrangement by 2 foreign intelligence operatives using the names Bu and Mai. Zhang later returned to China, detected suspicious tasking about core equipment components, cut off contact, and voluntarily reported the episode. Authorities spared him prosecution. The MSS also warned that foreign intelligence services are exploiting pop-up ads for data collection, location tracking, target profiling, ideological infiltration, and tailored recruitment. In Beijing's telling, even a sketchy pop-up ad is now part of the spy war. Honestly, in 2026, that may be one of the least surprising sentences in the briefing. Thanks for listening and helping build this community. If you'd like to support the show, leaving a comment or sharing the episode helps more people find it. And if you want to continue the conversation, we publish a daily intel brief on Substack at restrictedhandling.substack.com with deeper analysis on Russia, China, Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.